Good morning, Savannah. You're mute.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
We're all doing well.
Oh, it's good to see you guys.
Your
I
background
look
looks so
I looked
great.
at thank you. You know what? I look at the agenda and I'm really gonna be excited to hear about the goals and different things that we're looking at for um the block grants and SAMHSA and all of that.
Sounds great.
Also, Judith, I'm going to have to leave early today
Okay,
around
okay.
between 10:20 and 10:30.
10:20. Okay,
Yes.
noted.
Hi,
Thank you.
Megan.
Hi, we're just having a puppy moment with
I'm
Tasha's
looking. Oh,
adorable puppies.
how cute. Oh
Why
my
have one
goodness.
puppy when you can have two?
Savannah, do you have a note taker that you use typically?
A new what?
Do you have a note taker that you use for this
Yes,
meeting?
and
Okay,
yes, and I can't figure out how to turn it off.
I can turn it off. If
Yes,
it, okay,
please.
will do.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Oh, look at the baby. So cute. Mine is sitting here.
Good morning,
She,
everyone. If you just joined us, um, folks are coming in hot, so I am getting everybody in here. Thank you all so much. And we'll give ourselves another minute or so to start. We have a packed agenda today. Megan Shelton, my colleague Megan on the council, she will help me a little bit with some of the chat. She'll monitor the chats for me. We don't have additional help today, so I appreciate your patience and grace in advance. Good morning, everyone.
And Judith, will you take notes
Good morning, Judith.
today without the additional help?
I will not be able to take notes. I'll take notes with the video afterwards.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm
Judith,
so
let me know
letting
what I
folks
can do.
in. Oh, thank you, Aaliyah.
Yeah, I'll keep tabs on the chat.
Okay.
Trust me, you don't want me doing minutes because
That's okay. Thank you.
if you want every
Oh,
single
thank you,
word that's
Bonnie.
said,
Say that again.
if you want every single word that's being said and
No.
then skip like a bunch,
A
that would
bunch,
be me.
yeah. Oh gosh. I'm not great at notes either. So we're in good company. Good morning, everyone. Just give us one more minute to still let folks in. So make sure we have quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, there is Carrie. Awesome. I think we're good. All right, wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning,
I'm
Judith.
excited about today's meeting. It's fully packed, so it's great. Good morning, Megan. Good morning, Charles, Carrie, Frank, and Dennis. Yeah, Jenny. All righty. I think that we're good to kick off the meeting this morning. So thank you all so much for joining us. It's September's BPAC meeting, and we have a fully packed agenda today. I ask for some grace and patience today as we don't have admin support. Everyone is kind of tied up. So it will take me a little while to kind of shift between screens and share my screen. But Megan, I've got so many volunteers today to help with the chat. So Megan and Aliyah and Bonnie have offered to help with the chat. I will share the agenda on my screen now. And I also wanted to say that Hope isn't able to be here today, so our fearless co-host will lead us today. Let me share my agenda, our agenda today. Hmm. Do you see the agenda?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's great. Awesome. So today we have a really packed, I'm still letting folks in. Angie is coming in now. We have a fully packed agenda today. We'll go over, first I wanted us to go over our meeting information packet so that we are all mindful of our meeting rules, to be kind to each other and wait our turn. If you need closed captions, please click on that closed caption at the bottom of your screen, and it would be able to give you what you need. I also wanted to go over a group agreement, which is to make sure that we all are respectful of each other, are mindful of each other's opinions. We don't always have to be on the same page, but we can always give grace to each other. Variety is the spice of life, is what they say. And then also for members of the public, to please be mindful that you will not be able to speak until it's time for public comment. I am going to share this in the chat. Okay, I just shared our code of conduct. Okay, I think I'm good to go, and I will hand it over to Megan.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our monthly BHPAC meeting. We're going to start with roll call. So please say present and let me know that you are here. Aaron Black. Natalie Brown.
Megan, would you please verbalize if the member is absent so I can have it on record?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, it looks like Aaron and Natalie are not present. Now, I cannot see the screen, so if you are giving me thumbs up or showing me more puppies, I cannot see them. Savannah Brown.
Present.
Thank you. Charles Davis.
Present.
Carrie Eckert.
Present.
Jacob Fry. Sean Gartrell. Kelly George.
Present.
Laureen Gilroy. Laureen is not here. Marjorie Grimsley.
Present.
Thank you, Margie. Jenny Gencheva.
Present.
Sorry if I butchered your last
It was
name.
perfect.
Okay. Danielle House. Hope Hyatt, and she did say she would not be able to be here. Megan Lovelace, that's me, and I'm here. Dr. Asia Lyons.
Here.
Thank you. Sharon Mock.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. Michael Miller. Looks like Michael is not here. Dennis Streeter.
Present.
Welcome, Dennis. Angie Wold.
Present.
Thank you, Angie. And Annette Zacharias.
Present. Sorry for my tardiness.
No worries. Welcome, everyone. And as you can see, the agenda is on the screen here for your review. And in lieu of the minutes not being where they need to be because of a technical glitch, so we were not able to share those with you. So we will have to hold off on approval of the minutes for this meeting. However, we will be sending out those minutes for an email vote. So please look for those in your inbox shortly. And in that next agenda item, appointment of a presiding member for today's meeting, I was traveling, although I am here for the duration of the meeting, so I have the pleasure of chairing this meeting with you all today. And before we move forward, I'd like to just take a moment to call us all in to this space. We know this work can be stressful, and I invite all of us to remember why we're all here, for that same goal of supporting people across Colorado so that they can have the services and supports they need to thrive in their community. So let's take a moment to be grateful for being here together and center ourselves in compassion and grace. And thank you for your service to the state. And then moving on, we are going to get some SAMHSA updates from Ann Denton. So Ann, I will hand that over to you with any updates you have.
All right, thank you very much. And I don't have much more to report than what was reported last time, which is that we are not hearing, we know from the budget, from the continuing resolution, that the block grant will be continued for the period of the continuing resolution at the same level and without being combined with the other block grants, which was proposed. In terms of my technical assistance, I'm scheduled to end technical assistance at the end of this month. And I want to say how much I have enjoyed working with this group. And that's all I got.
Thank you so much for that, Anne, for keeping us posted as we all have question marks floating over our heads around some of the things that are happening currently at the federal level. And Anne, your partnership and expertise and guidance has been invaluable to us as a council and to the state of Colorado. We're so, so grateful to have you in partnership with us. I feel like it's helped us to learn a lot, to grow as a council, and to make sure we are meeting the needs of our community. So we're very grateful for you.
It's been a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, moving forward, we are going to go into our presentation recap. We're a little ahead of time, which is pretty great. And what we have is, again, that slide deck that we reviewed previously. And so it looks like, Judith, you've got that up on the screen. And that was a pretty robust presentation. I assume that many of you have gone back to look over that presentation again. And so this is a space to really just review that and any questions that we have around any of those specifics in that presentation. And it's also a chance to sort of look at where we've come from and where we're going to. So I know that during that presentation, we had some questions. Afterwards, we had some more comments around that recommendation letter. So this is the space for any more questions or concerns around these priority areas, the strategies, the goals. We did get some clarity both from Anne and from the team at the Behavioral Health Administration in regards to some of these priority areas, including the one on the screen, our neighbors with tuberculosis. We most certainly are required to provide those services. So some places where we had questions, we found answers. And so I'm opening the floor to any folks who have any questions around any of these priority areas or the strategies that are defined within the priority areas. Again, a robust slide deck. And I had some questions afterwards. I even went to a SAMHSA presentation yesterday about some strategies for ESMI, which was really great that was additional information that SAMHSA offered to us that we can add to how we collect data. And Judith, you've got your hand up.
I just wanted to alert you, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can bring up the follow-up question and answers that we shared with that you all submitted for the division director. So
Thank you.
thank you.
And if you don't see your questions in there, this is a great time to sort of make sure that any additional questions would rise up now. As we see that question document come onto the screen, I know not everybody had a chance to really get into those documents or maybe to share. And so today we'll ask you again to share the questions or concerns that you may have. And I apologize, Judith, I don't have that question document in front of me to bring up.
One moment, my computer is not the fastest either. So.
But for the pleasure of the group, I assume we've all had a look at those slides again. And this is the time, if there's any questions about those presentations from the division directors at the Behavioral Health Administration. All right, and I assume y'all have
Okay,
also,
you can see my screen.
yes, had a look at that spreadsheet. And I will really call your attention to the green column. The green column are the answers that the division directors shared with us for each priority area. And I love this because it really tells us whom is in charge of this work, who's going to be tracking this work, and additional information about that work. And so if you haven't looked through these documents, this green column is a great way to continue to learn more about how these dollars are showing up in our communities, and whom our point people are when we have questions about those different priority areas.
I also shared this document in the chat.
And when you look at the pie charts that were in that slide deck that showed proportionally where the mental health block grant dollars were going and where the substance use block grant dollars were going. This, in the green column, is sort of an explainer. It really takes you beyond just that chart and shows you exactly how then within those different sections of the graph, those dollars will be used. So where you see it say, you know, BASO, that's a lot, right? That's a lot. And so in this green column, it's going to show you, oh, this is what the Behavioral Health Administration Service Organization will utilize those block grant dollars for, both in mental health and substance use, respectively. If you don't see your question in there, if you don't see a response that you feel is sufficient, again, now is the time for us to dialogue about this. And it's okay if you haven't been able to show up at the block grant subcommittee meetings. We promise you that those of us that have been working hard in that space have been listening in to the council's concerns, ideas, suggestions, and tried to reflect that both here in the spreadsheet and again in the letter of recommendation. So I'm going to pause for some questions, thoughts, concerns. And remember that these documents have been available to you for your reading pleasure.
Megan, this is Jenny. As we read this, I have a question. I don't know if this is necessarily the right place, but I want to pose that question just for general kind of financial information. The MSOs in the past have utilized 7% of the block grant funds for administrative costs. So basically, every service that they funded, they retained 7% for their own administrative cost. Do we know what the current ratio is with the BASOs?
You know, I do see in the document a 5% administrative cost associated with BASO, although that is a great question. And Judith, I wonder if that's something that we take back to Alyssa at the BHA. I believe she is the BASO boss. Because I would have that same question, Jenny, if it's a 7% admin fee and then a 5% on top with the block grant expenditure, or if that's just a combined expenditure. And I do believe there are statutory limitations for how much administrative fees are associated with the MSO, although I don't have that exact number. Megan Shelton, do you happen to know what that breakdown is?
I do not. I was just messaging Alyssa to see if I can get an answer for us.
Thank you, Jenny. Hopefully by the end of this meeting, we'll have more information about that. And I had a curiosity as well, because I'm new to this council, so I will look to some of our veteran council service folks here. Are we, is this sort of what we do with the block grants, is some of it goes to administrative? Because maybe that's how it is, and I just don't know that. Does anyone who's been on the council for a while have a better idea about that? Looking at you, Margie, or Dennis, or any other veteran folks on this call.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I would assume, just because most federal contracts have that built in, whether it's somewhere between 3 and 10%, but I haven't heard that specific.
I can also take that back and look in the app and look in that specific the block grant to see what the boundaries are and what the requirements are. But if it's similar to state grant, there's always indirect cost and administrative cost to doing the work. So it's pretty much just paying the FTE to do the work, and paying the bills.
Yeah, I think the key question is, how is that counted? So if the BASOs are using, if the state has taken its allocation for admin off the top, then when money is allocated to the BASOs, are they then allowed to use an agreed upon percentage for administrative, and does that count against the state's total? It's about how it's counted, I think, is the question.
And we have Margie, you had your hand up first, and then Bonnie.
I just want to say, since Ryan is going to be joining us later, that might be a question he can answer, since he was part of that. He's been part of that piece of the process for a long time.
Makes sense, Margie. And Bonnie?
I can give some perspective from the prevention set aside that might apply to this portion too. But for the prevention set aside, kind of a standard operating process, any of our grantees, I think we're actually required to offer the 15% federal de minimis as an indirect too. Some grantees do choose to waive it. And then some of our folks, such as like local public health agencies, they might have a negotiated higher rate that can be applied to personnel. So it does vary. And again, I'm not sure how things are with the BASOs, but for prevention and funds that are going to CDPHE and then to our community-based organizations. That's what kind of the indirect breakdown can look like.
Thank you for that, Bonnie.
Thanks,
That
Bonnie.
helps. It makes sense. Other questions? And I realize we flew through that slideshow. That was definitely with the assumption that y'all have viewed that document, that robust document sense. And so again, in the spreadsheet, checking out the comment section also really helps us to better see how that breakdown of those dollars will be spent. And thank you so much to Kasha for helping us to better understand where these dollars are going. Another interesting thing that I noticed looking at the document is we spent a lot of time talking about prevention and sort of that front end care. And I think what we see in the document is a little bit more of the dollars focused on more mid and high acuity. And so the discussion in the block grant subcommittee was that perhaps we would have an additional document that would better reflect how this council and service providers across the state see entry-level treatments as part of prevention. So if that's of interest to the group, I know that Margie has really, Margie, Sharon, many of you have led the charge in the importance of prevention across the board. And really, when we talk about prevention, talking about those sustained treatments that our neighbors require to live healthy, thriving lives in their communities. So when you look in the comment section, you may see a lot of back and forth around prevention and what it means and how the dollars are used. So it's an area of curiosity for some folks on the council. Bonnie.
And I think this is always my cue to say, wait, so why is this person here? So my team and I, we are charged with managing, so it's a mandate that 20% of these funds be set aside for primary prevention. The way this is done in Colorado is that 20% then goes from the BHA to CDPHE. We have a whole prevention services division, and we collaborate with a lot of other prevention programs in Colorado. And SAMHSA has a pretty, I'll call it maybe like stringent definition of prevention, and that is activities or services geared towards an individual or population prior to onset of a diagnosis. So we try to adhere to that, or we do adhere to that. And yeah, but that's why I'm here. That's what we do. And yeah, if you ever have questions about prevention in Colorado, how we collaborate with other programs, just let us know.
Thank you, Bonnie. And I'm realizing at roll call, I forgot to welcome all of our state partners. So to all of our state partners, we're so happy you're here. Margie.
I just wanted to add, when we did have a prevention committee, and that included Dennis and Bonnie, and I think one of the things that came up in one of our conversations in our block grant piece, which was something that we had captured when we were doing our recommendations the previous time, and that was that clarification on definition of prevention. And I think, Bonnie, you just said that, we go the SAMHSA definition, then different state entities, different state grants, they can sometimes have a different definition of prevention. And that was something that we had identified way back, and Dennis can help if I'm not saying this correctly. But I think that still might be the case, that it's important that we really do have a clear definition of what prevention means, because I think those of us that recognize how important prevention work is, how hard we need to advocate that it is continued to be funded and preserved in the work moving forward.
If I could just say, Margie, you captured it perfectly. The main thing is as Margie said, we recognize that prevention goes across all lines, and there's just so many different agencies that get impacted. But what we were looking to do was have prevention recognized and utilized in the other committees. The recovery and the services committees. So yeah, that's how we approached it. But we wanted to clarify exactly what what it meant. That was real important to all of us.
Thank you, Dennis. And Bonnie, I saw your hand up and then down. And I also saw this really great document that you put in the chat for our reading pleasure, which we appreciate.
Just some code and regulation for your poolside reading this weekend. And actually something that I need to share with the group, and it might be in clearance right now, but we did come together as prevention funders. So with Tony Grams's Youth Services, CTC, I think a few other agencies, and we created a statewide needs assessment. I think, I'm like, where is it in the clearance process? I'm not sure. If it is public, I will definitely share it with the group because I found it really promising, if that makes sense, and maybe a new era of alignment.
That's fantastic, Bonnie. Thank you so much. And I wonder if that's a partner document to the work that we're doing as a council. And Judith, maybe we could just keep that in our Google Drive or however we're saving all of our awesome documents so that that's something that we can refer back to. We are a quiet group this morning. I do realize that Monday happened on a Tuesday and we all are feeling a little robbed. However, this is the time for us to come together and really make sure that what we know our neighbors need today and moving forward is reflected in the documents, especially the letter of recommendation, which we will talk about soon. This spreadsheet is really helping us as a council inform the letter. So if you're wondering, Megan, why are we looking at this spreadsheet? This is not a letter of recommendation. This is our thought process for that letter of recommendation, as well as that back and forth that the block grant subcommittee, as well as the council as a whole, through your questions and concerns, have been communicating directly with leadership at the Behavioral Health Administration. So slam your coffee and please give us some input. Hi, Jenny, what you got?
So, I have participated in the subcommittee and here in the last few months, and I think one major portion of behavioral health prevention and intervention that I think we haven't discussed a whole lot is the influence of technology on the behavior of kids and adolescents, especially, of course, adults, but we're going to invest more in kids and adolescents, of course. And so I'm wondering if we need kind of separate budding discussion about this. I know that not just on national, but also international level, there has been a focus of attention in the last several years. And some of the research, not just in the United States, but in England and Denmark, has been very alarming. I just don't want for us to miss the boat with this one, because I don't want the Colorado kids to, we see from COVID and the reality of COVID and kids going to school entirely online, some of the outcomes of emotional disturbance and mental illness that we received from that process. But I think it's an overall issue that we have to put somewhere in our areas of priorities.
Thank you, Jenny. And that is so true. I think we see that showing up in all of our communities, both adults and youth. And Bonnie says this is such a vital point, right? And it makes your job of prevention a little bit more complex, or a lot more complex. And we do know that we did have a bill go through legislative session, but the governor, he didn't love it and he vetoed it. I think it's great to have that continued discussion. Anyone else with anything to add around digital hygiene? And I wonder if it's possible to put that in that priority area, Judith. Maybe just additional thought around that.
Just to add a little bit of clinical aspect to that, I think where we fail is the identification of that connection between mental illness and overexposure to digital environment. From point of view of just hygiene, we know that everybody needs to establish some criteria for moderation, moderate use, breaks, and so forth and so on. From intervention point of view, I think we also need to establish some intervention tools as well as especially assessment and identification tools. And I think this is where we completely missed the boat.
Do you know, Jenny, or does anyone on this call know if there are currently assessments specifically around the digital exposure that are being utilized in the state currently?
I think there's surveys and questionnaires. I don't know that there is a validated clinical tool that is absolutely focusing on just this area, but there are quite a few surveys and questionnaires that could be used. And I know a little bit more about, because I'm also a member of some European associations of psychologists. Since I'm still a card-carrying European psychologist, they send me those things. And it seems like they also, they're kind of in the same boat. They develop some tools that are mostly screenings. But I will keep an eye and I can send some things that I find around that arena and make them available to everybody.
Thank you, Jenny. And I wonder, Judith, if we ask the child and youth team, maybe Matt, if they have any of those tools, or if they are deploying any of that data collection around the impact of the digital environment on youth, or if that's something that is currently being implemented in the system of care. And Dr. Lyons said, curious if Denver Public Schools is thinking. That's a great question. Do we have someone from Department of Education on? My apologies again for not welcoming our state partners at the beginning of this call.
I know Phyllis Reed sometimes comes. I'm not seeing her, but if she's not here, she'd be a great person to reach out to. She's from CDE.
Thank you.
I could ask Christy to.
And Kelly puts in digital media use screener from the Wellness Lab. Kelly, do you want to say more about that? And it's okay if you cannot, but we'd love a link or more information about that.
Yes, so sorry. I thought I was unmuted. So it's in beta testing and it's being used to kind of review and check out daily functioning across domains like sleep. You've got academics, family relationships, and it talks about the quality and impact of use rather than the duration. It's gaining some traction in clinical settings, but it's not statewide right now. So hopefully it becomes a little bit more accessible to folks, and hopefully actually comes out as evidence-based, and we get some good use out of that, because I do think that that's something that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Is that something you can share with the council?
Yeah, let me try and find the web link that I have.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we are at just about time to, Margie, see your hand.
Sorry, maybe you can add, but the Healthy Kids stat survey that is done throughout the state and is just the kickoff is for this month, also collects information and data on the input from youth. And it's included in this, I think, are questions regarding cell phone, that kind of data. So it's important. So it's a resource that we can utilize.
Thank you, Margie. And are we currently looking at that Healthy Kids survey? Judith, do you know, or Megan, do you know if that's part of how the data that we're collecting?
Yeah. So the Healthy Kids survey, it's a huge survey, as you know, and I think agencies and programs use some of that data. I don't know how much of that BHA uses, but I can find out.
I do know that they take that into consideration. I don't know how much of it is incorporated into the Child and Youth Behavioral Health Implementation Plan. But a lot of these questions, I think it might be really good for the council to have a follow-up with Mary Kay and Matt Holtman to go over some of this stuff too and get more information. I don't know when they're on your agenda next.
Yeah, since you brought that up, I'm actually in conversation with Mary Kay for her to come back to the council to do a presentation on their plan, and then of course answer a lot of these questions.
I think Christy Elliott from the Department of Education, who also comes here sometimes, has been a good source of information about how they interpret things. But I know that the state of New York essentially banned cell phones in schools this school year. And so I'm sure that they have some rationale behind it that I'm curious to, I'll try to supply that here.
Thank you, Jenny. And that is amazing, interesting, and a dream probably for all educators to take the cell phone away just during school. And Bonnie says we use HKCS data to steer the efforts for the primary prevention set aside. Almost all of our grantees have these data points in their logic models. So that's awesome that we're thinking about it. And we're just a couple minutes over on agenda, but Frank, I can't help it. You're on the call. CBHC, are you all collecting data? I mean, are your clinics collecting any sort of digital hygiene data just as a part of your kind of youth wellness plans, if I can ask?
Excuse me. Hi, everybody. I wasn't prepared to speak, I guess. I don't know the answer to that question, Megan. Just I'll put a shameless plug for our conference that we do have a couple of sessions, I believe, on AI, and but data hygiene, that would be a question I could put out to our group of clinical leaders across the state.
Thank you, Frank. We appreciate that. I think the more we know about who's collecting information around digital hygiene and health, the more we can make informed decisions. And let's move along. If anyone has any other questions about that spreadsheet, remember, you can just get in there and type away. We're going to move along to our letter of recommendation and just a little history of how our block grant subcommittee has gotten to the space that we're at now. If you look at your agenda, you can sort of see some of the timelines that we had that we had to follow in order to get the letter to where it is today. While the letter is not quite complete because we are still looking for that input from you, it's important to know that that the Behavioral Health Administration has submitted the application, yes, for the block grant last Friday. Does that mean there's no letter? No. It does mean we'll be submitting our letter of recommendation at a different time than the submission of the block grant. Why was that? Because the deadline was September 1st. That's why. And it doesn't mean that our letter has any less value or power in this space. And today is the day where we're going to really go through that letter line by line. So I don't know if it's possible, Judith, to just pull up that letter and just to know that that is just a draft. If it's not what you're used to seeing, or it doesn't have what you had hoped was in there, please know that today's the day to continue to add your voice into this space. Judith.
I wanted to make a brief comment that as I pull up that draft letter, I just wanted to remind council members that this tab in this spreadsheet really is where I call the vault. This is where we've collected all your recommendations. If you remember in the August meeting, you all, the membership, the blood grant subcommittee brought this to the council, and you all provided a lot of recommendations, which the subcommittee then aligned with their own recommendations, and which of course fed into some of the questions that were asked the division directors. So the questions that we shared and the responses, they included both questions that came up in their presentation and also questions that we've collected throughout these conversations. So since August all the way through now. So I just wanted you all to be mindful of that as I move on to that draft. And Charles?
Yeah, sorry to step back a bit. I was remembering that, and I'm going to put Bonnie on the spot, but not intentionally. Bonnie, I know CDPHE sponsored a survey through Rise Above Colorado, and they had information about social media. I don't know if you could help us find that, but that might be some good data around the social or digital media impact.
Oh my God, that is a great point. And we do fund Rise Above to do that survey. Let me get on the internet real quick, and I bet I can find some info, but thank you for that reminder.
Yep, thanks, Bonnie. Sorry.
This is the magic of the council. Look at us. We have all the data. Amazing. Thank you, Charles. And so, again, this is a draft. And I want everyone right now to go through it with me line by line. This is the boring part of our meeting, but very important. And so we're going to take the time. It's on your screen. Judith, thank you. Also dropped that into the chat. And I want to thank the Block Grant Subcommittee for their hard work and dedication here, and to the council as a whole for your contributions. So at the beginning, you'll see that we, as we did last year, have just stated our statutory requirement as the council to begin this letter. And in the second portion of the letter, you will see our acknowledgement as the council in partnership with the BHA, and really speaking about how we have come to this space, to this letter of recommendation. In the following paragraph, we move into more of our recommendations. And again, if you don't see your recommendations in here, it's okay to come off mute and say what you thought was in there, wonder why something's in there, or continue to contribute. our goal, of course, is to have this letter submitted. Hopefully, before the end of the month. We're still sort of playing with our timeline there, but what we do know is that we're hungry for your input today. Here in the issues identified and unaddressed recommendations, we do see some of the same things that were in the letter from last year around more comprehensive data. And didn't we just have a great conversation about data? We even discovered lots of new data we can add to this. And thank you, Bonnie, for the Rise Above survey. Speaking of data. Hearing no comments, we will move on to the primary recommendations. And again, if you don't see your recommendation in here, this is the time. The floor is yours. Of course, if you don't feel comfortable speaking in this meeting, I will make myself available to you and even help you populate the document. I think what you'll find in here is a lot of our recommendations, perhaps worded differently. Jenny.
Maybe just the wording. I know that we discussed and it was generally reflected on the document, the attention that is needed to rural programs. I'm just wondering if we can spell it within the program recommendations as a support for sustainability of rural programs.
Sure, and I think where it says rural and frontier.
And frontier, correct.
Okay. Support for the sustainability of those programs, or what
Correct.
would you take that language
Yeah.
to like?
I mean, if anybody has other ideas around verbiage, that's what comes to my mind, because we get hit hardest immediately after some change happens, and then it takes a long time to recover, if at all.
And what hits you the hardest there, Jenny? Do you want to name that?
I think really the transition from MSOs to BHASOs has been a nightmare for us. That I have no other way of describing it.
So sustainable funding streams for those programs.
Yeah.
And is that for the to keep our providers in those rural communities?
Yeah, and I think in general, from the beginning of the reform of mental health providers, organizations, we went through several kind of ebbs and flows. Initially, the idea was to provide atmosphere where smaller providers with capacity to provide kind of neighborhood services, if you will, are going to be prioritized. But we ended up again with the larger organizations, the former community mental health organizations being prioritized, just because they're large ships that are, that they can sink. And so right now, I know of so many providers who are talented, who have heart and really would offer some fantastic things to the smaller communities, who just throw the towel. They don't want to, they can't work, they don't have the resources to work, they can't sustain their operations, and it's a huge loss for the people who suffer from mental illness and SUD. So I think that's just one of the aspects of this transition. But normally, just rural areas are the ones that immediately receive the waves of earthquakes.
Got it. Sounds like equitable access to those funding streams
Yeah.
is important in doing this work. And I see Savannah. Thank you, Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, hi. I had a question about the marginalized communities. Is there like a legal definition of what is marginalized?
Don't know what is the standard set forth by that, Judith?
I think Megan can respond to that of what BHA, what our definition of marginalized and priority populations is.
I don't know that we have an exact definition, and we are currently working on just the wording around how we say things and how we define things. So that document should be coming out fairly soon. Just what terminology we're using to describe marginalized, underserved, high risk. All of these terms kind of get thrown around quite a bit. And so wanting to make sure that we're being consistent with our communication when we're talking about different populations, that we really want to focus on ensuring that they're brought into the work that we're doing.
Yeah, because my question is like, can we be a little more specific about what we're talking about, like the marginalized, the underserved, and that kind of thing?
Good question, Savannah. And maybe we can get a little more answer from Kasha and the authors of the block grant, and what language did they use when they submitted the block grant, and maybe we just are using that same language so we have that unified message. What do you think, Savannah?
Yeah, I would like to, get a copy of what you guys come up with.
And I will say it may be different than what you're seeing in here, because we will have that document after this was already written.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, great question, Savannah. I'm having lots of conversations about that all the time recently.
And we're so happy to have you on the council, Savannah, bringing that back to the front of our minds. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. And Judith, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to make a quick comment, Jenny. When we went to Pueblo for commissioner conversations, this came up a lot as well about, which providers are on own path. Community members are not necessarily seeing local providers on own path. And our response has always been, and I'm also putting a shameless plug here to say that we really need, everyone's support to make that directory more robust than it is. And so there is a link on the Own Path website for providers to submit if they don't see their program or their services or their agency on that directory to please submit for it to be listed. So I just wanted to make a plug for that.
Thank you, Judith. I'll pass that.
And that Own Path, Judith, I have a question there. That's for any provider, whether you take insurance or not. Is that correct?
Colorado Lifts, yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I see Margie, your hand up.
This was something that we mentioned at the block grant meeting, and I don't know, it might be in here and I'm missing it, and this might not be the appropriate place to put it is in this letter, but I think that some of our recommendations, when we got the response back from the state, it indicated that the block grant does not pay for that type of programming or what are asked. So if asking the BHA to provide us better guidance on what the block grant can and cannot fund, so that we're not making requests that aren't appropriate for the block grant, but certainly can be appropriate for our non-block grant discussions.
Thank you, Margie. And I think that draws a good point, right? The statutory guidelines around the funding for the SAMHSA grant at the federal level can be stringent. And therefore, we may see some of our recommendations that don't fit within those funding guidelines. And I love your point about the non-block grant conversations. And when we're talking about things that aren't necessarily going to fall into the funding of the block grant, it doesn't mean they're not important. We also discussed in the block grant subcommittee, perhaps we have a partner letter that is all those bits that we know as community leaders across the state are important and partner work for the block grant. We even discussed perhaps just having that second letter that says, while we know this is not funded through our SAMHSA block grant, we know it's important. And while you'll see those things in the spreadsheet, perhaps it's a way for us to submit our letter of recommendation for that SAMHSA block grant and also submit to BHA and our state partners our additional recommendations. Tosh, I see your hand up.
I was just going to say, I'm not too sure if this has been changed, but I believe that the definition for underserved populations and the marginalized populations should be in statute.
There is, the BHA does have some language around that in one of, I forget which one it is. I don't know if it's 195 or not, but it's somewhere there.
2750-101-17B CRS, I believe.
Thank you. You just drop that in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't know if it's been changed or whatever, but I do know that it was in statute at one point.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, wonderful partnership from BHPAC. Thank you, Tosh. Now we are at 10:01. This means we've got 10 more minutes. Please share with us now any additional comments, concerns. This is our time. The floor is yours. This letter is not final. And our council is rooted in consensus. So please use your voice. Charles.
Thanks, Megan. Since nobody's talking, I'm always good at filling a void. One of the areas that we used to focus on here at BHPAC maybe 8 years ago was the working poor. When we shifted a lot of our focus on to Medicaid and the indigent through the OBH, now BHA, we left a whole swath of our community basically without a life raft. These folks that make just enough not to qualify for Medicaid or not to qualify for indigent funding, they are out there adrift. And I just would be remiss if I didn't bring that up again, that we need to figure out a way to help the entire community. Not that it's wrong to focus on the most compromised, but I don't think we should be doing that at the cost of the working poor.
Thank you, Charles. And as you see, we're typing some things in. Is there specific language that you would like to add in that space? Maybe looking at those BASO funds, right? There's a lot of the SUD and mental health block grant that's going to the BASO. Do you find there's any specific language in this space you'd like to contribute? And thank you for bringing up a large portion of our neighbors across the state.
Yeah, I just think it's, I just wish that we would take that indigent language out and just help people who need help. That's a lofty goal, but I do know we see folks every day that we can't help. because of their social economic status. And they may, and it to me, it demotivates them to try to become self-sustaining again, because if they go out and make just a little too much, then they lose all their support. So it's almost like working counterintuitive to what we're trying to help folks.
Thank you, Charles. And I know the BASO contracts. Do you have a lot of sort of focus on the and underinsured?
We do. Yeah.
Do hope. Yeah.
We do both. But like I said, I know we run into it consistently where there's folks that we don't have anything to offer them because they don't fit into one of the boxes. So it's really, I think it takes a toll on the workforce as well.
Absolutely. No one wants to turn away someone who needs help. And
Correct.
there is some language in the recommendations around offering vouchers to community members that they can remit for an appropriate service out of those BASO funds. Something to think about as we think creatively around ways that we can touch all of the members of our communities that need that help. To your point, Charles, who may not fall into a category where there is an operationalized funding stream. Tash.
And this is concerning workforce. I know that there's a lot of people out there that have criminal backgrounds. It could be 20 years, 30 years ago, but because of the type of charges that they got, it disqualifies them from entering the workforce when it comes to peer support, family service support, all of the BHA, the behavioral health, all together. I don't know exactly how, like what I'm trying to say. I just feel like that needs to be addressed, the workforce and the qualifications, because there would be really good candidates, but because of what they went through in their lives and their lived experience, it disqualifies them. So, and that would also help. Those are the people that know, that been through that could definitely make a difference when it comes to helping our child and youth and everything else. So prevention, I guess, it hits it all. So I just, yeah.
Thank you, Tash. And a good point around making sure that we are offering every neighbor access to all of the resources they need to thrive. And that means livelihoods. That means that folks across the state have an opportunity to live thriving lives in their community through living wage. We just have about 3 more minutes before our bio break. Again, if it doesn't come to you now, if it comes in a dream in the middle of the night, send an email. If it's just a conversation you want to have, put my number in the chat. Remember, Hope is also available. Judith is available. Not that I'm voluntolding you, Judith, but we are here for you, even if you're not comfortable speaking in the public forum. It does not mean that we cannot input your thoughts, ideas, concerns. Megan. I'm sorry, I think you're muted.
Megan, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sitting here talking. I thought I clicked it off and I didn't. Thanks for letting me know. So a little bit off topic, but I wanted to follow up on the BASO admin question. I put this information in the chat for you all as well. BASOs are allowed to take their administrative fees in line with what they bid. So Rocky Mountain Health Partners is 7.5%, and Signal is 6.7%. Block grant isn't different than our state funds in this regard. Only 1287 has a lower admin limit of 5%. So I think that's what it was referring to, and you all were seeing the 5%.
Thank
you, Megan.
Of course. And Tasha, I will meet my puppy to your puppy.
Hey, we all love puppies. Puppies make us happy. Let's go into a break now, and we'll come back at in 5 minutes. Judith, do you mind setting a timer? Or if not, no biggie. We will see y'all in 5 minutes. 10:14. 10:15. Thank y'all. All right, everyone, welcome back. I hope that you feel refreshed and ready to talk about membership recruitment. And I will yield to Margie here. I believe that you have been in attendance in those meetings a little bit more than I have.
And I'll be happy to help too.
Oh, thank you,
Margie
Judith.
and
If
I.
you want to
Okay.
start us out, and then Margie, whatever you'd like to contribute in that space.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I just wanted to help with membership recruitment information. A lot of the members have been, kind of doing double duty with a lot of the other subcommittees. So I will share this document in the chat first, and then we can go over that. I first wanted to just mention a few members who would be retiring from the council, so that we can say our very well-deserved thank yous and goodbyes. But Jacob Fry's term is ending this year in September. Jacob would be able to apply for another term, and so we're waiting to hear from Jacob to see if he would be able to serve another 3-year term, because every council member is eligible for 2 consecutive 3-year terms. And so Jacob would have completed his first 3-year term this month. Lauren Gilroy will also be retiring from the council. She has served 2 consecutive terms, so that's really amazing. She's contributed so much to the council. And then I see Dennis has sent a really wonderful chat, really nice message in the chat, but Dennis is also, Dennis's term is ending this month, and Dennis has been an amazing and very engaged council member. Thank you so much, Dennis. Angie has also served 2 terms, and so this would be Angie's end of second term, consecutive term. Annette's first 3-year term ends this month, and Annette has graciously offered to apply again for a second 3-year term. So that is really exciting, and we're looking forward to getting through all that paperwork. They're just starting the work. Any comments, goodbyes, some parting words from any council member? And Megan?
Of course, thank you all for your service. This is a volunteer position, and most certainly everyone who shows up puts in their heart and soul. We see it. We're so grateful to you. And I know that each member of the council learns a lot from each other. So thank you so much for your invaluable contributions to this council and to the state of Colorado and all the people that we serve through these block grants. Margie.
I want to add to all the thanks, because each person that is not coming back has just been invaluable. I think Dennis first, we've worked together on several subcommittees, and just thank him for all his amazing work. Lorraine as well. And I don't know, did you mention Natalie Brown? Because Natalie is also done with her 2 terms, and she has served on the membership committee and just has always been an amazing partner with all the work that we've done. So I just cannot thank them enough for all their contribution and how much I've learned from each of those folks.
I did miss Natalie. Thank you, Margie.
Knowing that we are going to have some new folks on the council, Judith, do you have updates for us as to the applications? I know that Margie have been helping to review those.
Yes. So right now I just wanted to kind of do some level setting, just to remind all council members about, the seat configurations, what our priorities are, what your priorities would be for filling some of those vacant seats. And so, I think the magic number really right now is 20. So aiming for 20 would be amazing. But then you cannot have fewer than 15 seats any year. And so this is kind of the makeup of those seats. And so we have private, public and private entities, adults with serious mental illness who are receiving or have received mental health services, families with adults or children with emotional disturbance. And then also one thing I wanted to mention and highlight here is that at least 50% of council members have to be individuals who are not state employees nor providers of mental health services. So that is a really crucial point, meaning that, just that focus and just, that focus and priority on people with lived experience on this council is really important. And also here are the state agencies that we have representation for. Phyllis has retired, like she said, but we have two great CD folks in her place. So I will share their names as we go through this process. But here are state agency representation, mental health, which is Megan, and then education, rehab, and Charles has offered to recruit for his seat. So we have an applicant who has submitted to fill Charles's spot. And so here are the current seats that are not expiring. So those are all seats that will be good for 2026. And so there are 12 seats that will all, 11, including Annette, because Annette is asking, it has offered to reapply for a second term. And then Charles also has recommended someone to represent his seat. And we have Dr. Lyons as well, whose seat doesn't end until 2027. So we have 13 assured seats. And so outside of that, we haven't heard back from Jacob. And then also we need to reach back out to Erin just to check on her and then also make sure that everything is good and she's able to sit again. Danielle has missed a couple meetings, and so we will reach out to Danielle as well. Michael Miller has also missed a few meetings, and so we will reach out to him as well. I just wanted to make sure that I don't count them yet, so that you're all aware of which seats that you really do need to recruit for. So far, we have 12 applications that have been submitted, and here is kind of the makeup of those applicants. There is a good variety of them. So what really you would be looking at is filling at least, you have a few options, and so you can fill as many or as a few or a few seats as you like. The next steps that I have is that the membership subcommittee will review the applications, really go through them individually to ensure that they're selecting and proposing to the larger council equitable members and also members to fill crucial seats to ensure that this council is very as rounded as possible. And so that would happen, and then membership subcommittee will submit these recommendations to the council at the October meeting. I do want to point out that we are about a month or so behind in this process, and so I'm informing BHA about delay a little bit. And then also after the approval, then we would submit a packet to Commissioner Smith to review and then approve those. Margie, yes, I am all done. Please, I know there are a lot of gaps that Margie is going to fill. Thank you so much.
No, not at all. But again, I want to thank everyone that are leaving and those that are staying. But I also want to say that I had hoped to get through all of the new applicants and kind of do a profile of each. And I'm down to the last 3, but I have to say that the people in reviewing their applications in depth, I think we have amazing applicants that want to be part of the council. And as you can see, they come from different areas, but then when you look into their application and they really highlight what their specific interests are, skills, it's phenomenal, the people that want to join the council. So we should be very happy about that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Margie and Judith, and the membership subcommittee team for all your work here. Do we have access to all those applications, Judith?
Yes, and I've actually PDF them, which is a little easier to review, and I'll be happy to send to everyone.
You know, that just to say, Megan, that's what I'm doing, is kind of trying to condense it so there's a profile that captures each of the segments that might be easier for people to see versus going through each application. So certainly your prerogative, but that might be helpful for folks.
Thank you, Margie, for putting that together for us and making it easy for us to review and absorb that information. And can you remind us, Judith, when is the membership subcommittee meeting? In case anyone would like to join that before our next council as a whole meeting?
Because I'm sharing my screen, everything I do on my screen is going to be disruptive. Can I don't know if Megan, you'd be able to please take a peek at my calendar, or I think it's in a couple of weeks.
I think it's September 22nd, that Monday.
Yes, the 4th
from
Monday.
2 to 3.
Okay.
I'm confirming on your calendar now, Judith.
There we go. So if anyone is really wanting to dive into this, and perhaps you have not yet, you may join us at that September 22nd meeting from 2 to 3 p.m. And again, thank you to Margie for taking a leadership role in this space and helping us to organize our minds around this work.
Thanks, Megan. And that is confirmed on Judith's calendar.
Thank you. I'm also sharing the BHA events calendar, which has the link to the meeting as well. But please, if you would like to attend that meeting, just let me know and I'll add you to the invites list. Thank you.
And the great news is we have a pool of applicants to choose from who are all dynamic. And so excellent work to all of you on the council who have put forward recommendations, reached out to your community, let them know what the BHPAC is, what we do, how we do it, and that we want them to join. So we're very grateful for that team effort. The membership application is closed, just in case anyone's thinking, gosh, I can think of someone. Keep that person in your mind for the next round. But we've got applications ready to move forward. So excited to do that during our October meeting. And then I know we have Ryan Templeton coming in just a few moments to, hi Ryan, I see you're here, to tell us about the adventures at our state capitol. If you were not able to review his slide deck before, encourage you to read both that executive order letter, also that additional letter to the Joint Budget Committee. And I don't know, Ryan, if you want to just hop in a couple minutes early, because I'm sure we have many a question for you in relation to this presentation.
Yeah, no problem at all, Megan. Thank you. Again, hello, good morning, BHPAC. I'm Ryan Templeton. I'm the Legislative Director here at the Behavioral Health Administration. So thanks for inviting me. And we will talk about the 2025 special session. So with that special session, it was a few days, August 21st through the 26th, to get a few things done. One of the questions that gets brought up, why was there a need for a special session? And really starting at the bottom here is that it was all based, or predominantly based, on Colorado is required to have a balanced annual budget. So this special session, this 2025 special session, was about balancing the current fiscal year's budget. So that was the budget that was passed during the 2025 legislative session that ended in May. When the legislative session ended in May, and specifically when the governor signed the long bill package, Colorado had a balanced budget for FY26. Federal year, or Colorado state fiscal year 26 is from July 1 of 2025 through June 30th of 2026. So this special session was to address the budget for this current fiscal year that started July 1. So with that, it is because Congress passed HR 1, and President Trump signed that on July 4th, sometimes referred to as the Big Beautiful Bill Act. That is HR 1. With that, it rewrote the federal tax code, and the piece to that is that Colorado is one of 4 states that uses federal taxable income to determine how much people pay in Colorado state taxes. So we are tied directly to federal tax code. So when HR 1 was passed, and it provided some tax breaks for companies and individuals, it automatically threw Colorado's budget out of balance for this current fiscal year. With that, it's a roughly $800 million out of balance. You'll see some numbers related to like, hey, $1.2 billion out of balance. That is because we were expecting the revenue to be above the TABOR, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And we're expecting, because of that surplus, there would have been a TABOR refund to the people of Colorado. That is not happening, or is not projected to happen now because of HR 1 and us now being out of balance. So special session was there to try to balance the budget for this current year that was out of balance and address the artificial intelligence bill that passed. So I didn't put anything about the AI bill. It did extend the implementation of a lot of the artificial intelligence, which was supposed to go into effect in February. That has been delayed, which will get picked up again during the 2026 legislative session. So if you want to go to the next slide, what ended up happening? So during the special session, the General Assembly and the governor worked together. So the special session bills, there's a handful of them that created roughly $250 million worth of projected cuts to get to the roughly $800 million that was needed to be found. With that closes the state tax loopholes, because we were aligned with the federal tax code, which saved nearly $250 million, or found $250 million because of decoupling from the federal tax code and the state tax code. The other part, the largest part, is the general fund reserve. I don't think there has been a whole ton of conversation about this. Colorado has a reserve of 15% of the state budget. So that was dropped to roughly 13%, which allowed the general fund reserve to pay $350 million to fill some of that $800 million gap. So that's $325 million coming out of our general fund reserve. So now we're closer to 13% rather than the 15% reserve. We didn't want to go further than that because of the potential for a recession, and even further decrease in what sort of revenue Colorado would have. That's where the general fund would pick up if we aren't collecting as much taxes as was originally projected. And then the last part is the governor's reduction. Part of what the General Assembly did was allowed the governor to make cuts to current year spending for programs, and that equals out to roughly $250 million of cuts. If you're interested, I can get Judith or Megan, the Governor Polis and Office of State Planning and Budget Director Mark Ferrandino, they presented to the Joint Budget Committee about these reductions to get to it's really $252 million worth of cuts based on the executive order that the governor signed. So with that executive order, I think Judith is maybe running this, that there's a link in there about the executive order. That's the executive order D 2025-014 that spells out hey, this is what the governor is doing to try to balance out the current year. So this is where all of the cuts are coming. I want to reiterate, BHA funding is not on here. There is not funding from the Behavioral Health Administration that were included in these reductions. There are some that are related to behavioral health or have some impact on behavioral health providers. Specifically, the largest one in here was the provider rate, and the not increasing the provider rate that was projected to increase, or was going to get increased by 1.6%. That increase is not happening, which was about $38 million in savings. So the largest piece to this, or one of the largest pieces to that, is a direct impact on providers because the provider rate isn't increasing. This, as well as another link, I think you have a link within the presentation related to the explanation. I'll put it in the chat here. Related to this is the letter to the Joint Budget Committee from Executive Director Mark Ferrandino that goes into each one of the lines and the notes related to each one of the lines. So that's that little letter link right there on the blue side, Judith. Yep, right there. That goes into a little bit more detail. It's 12 pages of a letter to Chair Jeff Bridges, a senator, and the Joint Budget Committee. And if you go down to further down, you can look line by line about what the cuts were. A lot of them were healthcare policy and financing. That's the acronym HCPF, as well as Department of Corrections, for instance, the first one there. If you go down a couple more pages, we can start getting into right there is where there's notes related to each one of these cuts and each one of these reductions and if you're interested, there was quite a bit of back and forth between Director Ferrandino and JBC and other members of the legislature during their meeting on the 28th, which that's what I can provide the audio for that once I find that link. What sort of questions do you have for me related to the special session?
I wonder, Judith, if you could take the document down so we can see hands, if people have hands raised. And I have a question. On behalf of us parents like myself using waivers, I'm just wondering about that CES. So for folks who don't know, that's for parents like me or Kelly or lots of parents across the state who have kiddos with complex needs and we're on waiver programs. That's for adults too. But the CES has one component called the Community Connector. And Ryan, I see that it says in Mark maybe I'm saying his name wrong, Ferrandino's breakdown, that it's just going to match the payment with other payments. Like, what does that mean? I guess we want a little more clarity. And I don't mean to like hog the conversation, but that's certainly a question I know many parents have around that waiver program.
So part of these program reductions were also, a lot of the funding was moving from a cash funded, so collecting funds from a specific tax that isn't a general fund tax and into a cash fund, and moving the cash fund dollars into the general fund, as it's the general fund that needs to be balanced. So some of that is just moving dollars to make it so they can make the reductions to balance the general fund. So the level of complexity here begins to happen with there's really four, we'll call them colors of dollars within a state budget, right? There is the general fund dollars based on taxes that we all pay related to kind of everything. There's specific taxes or fees that go into a cash fund. So that's the second color of dollars. So there's general fund, there's cash fund, there's reappropriated dollars. So one state agency gets dollars that then sends it to a different state agency to reappropriate, which is called reappropriated to do a different thing. And then there's federal funds, right? So there's the four colors of money within the Colorado state budget. So this was all related to general fund balancing. And so part of the balancing was moving some of the dollars that were coming from a cash fund into the general fund. So some of the balancing in what you see in the notes is just that, is changing the color of money in order to balance it this year. So there's another big step that's going to happen that wasn't addressed in the special session, is how do we balance for FY27, which is going down the process. The next big step is the governor's budget release for a balanced budget for fiscal year 27 that will be coming out on November 1. This does not address that. And so that's what the General Assembly will also have to do in the 2026 session to really rebalance a lot of these or make full cuts to potentially programs in order to further balance the budget moving forward. It's likely going to be a very similar thing that we saw in 2025, where there is a massive budget hole that we have to fill. So expect more reductions to a bunch of programs to try to balance out the revenue and the projections of revenue that are Colorado's in a challenging spot right now. So Megan, that was a way of going really around your question specifically to that program, as I don't have the specific impact to that specific line through healthcare policy financing related to what the impact of that specific and specific waiver programs are. All the piece that I am very familiar with is that you will not see CDHS BHA specifically on the budget savings table, as none of our BHA programs were impacted by the special session cuts.
Thank you, Ryan. Dennis?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan, for that update and mentioning that we have 2027 right around the corner. And in my conversations with some of our legislators, you know, one big stumbling block is Tabor. And we're going to see a movement to inform and educate the public on what Tabor really is. It's been a long time, and people just hear the term and it sounds great, taxpayer bill of rights. Senator Wiseman and I are in discussion about doing probably a series of podcasts where he's our expert on Tabor in our Senate, and he is going to explain exactly what it is and hopefully rally support to modify Tabor. Personally, I'd like to see it go away. It's a total waste. But anyhow, that is one of the problems. The other problem, which had an impact on Colorado that did not necessarily impact yet the other states, which is why we had to go into special session, is the structure of how we piggyback the federal tax rules with the state tax rules. And there are two areas that our legislature is looking at, again, possibly modifying, and that is to change that where we can control much more of our revenue, incoming revenue. And the other part, of that is, and again, Tabor's a big part of that as well. But anyhow, we are going to be looking at modifying how that is collected and look at, rather than a flat state tax, we're going to be probably seeing a movement towards a graduated state tax where the wealthier people will pay at a higher percentage. Those are things on the horizon, and I will be covering those in my podcast. Thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. Kelly?
I'm just wondering why some of these cuts were made when a lot of like the waiver services are federally matched dollars. I don't quite understand why we would be cutting some of these funding sources if they're federally matched dollars. It just seems to make no sense to me if we're leaving money on the table. I'm sorry if that sounds like an ignorant question or a statement, but why we would say, no, we don't want your money, when we can continue to make things better for people here in Colorado by providing those higher wages if dollar for dollar we're getting matched.
I don't think that's an ignorant question at all. I mean, I think that's a piece that we as Colorado have to go down, is that I think the other part that we haven't discussed, which I like the responses about having healthcare policy and financing come in, because the other side that HR1 also impacts is folks losing access to Medicaid and what that potentially means to the larger system, which goes into effect in a few years down the road. But how is BHA working with other state agencies to even impact the behavioral health services that may no longer be, people may no longer have coverage through Medicaid, right? So what does service delivery look like there? How can BHA and support from our partners like BPAC really drive what are the priority services that need to make sure that it is happening? Because there's a larger impact to Medicaid within the system coming down the road from HR1 as well. The special session only addressed the immediate cuts based on the tax code pieces, which, Kelly, you're exactly right, is that there's a larger conversation that needs to be happening related to this was an attempt to balance the current budget and doing it quicker, because the further we go within the current fiscal year, it's just going to make it harder to balance the budget in the current fiscal year, because the longer you wait, the more money gets spent. And so then you're cutting programs that you don't have money for at the end. So it was a tough situation to be in for the governor's office to try to make these cuts in a current fiscal year when the budget was initially balanced. But I think that's an important conversation for a group like this to continue to have, is about where does funding come from for the full system? And it's not just BHA, it's how does the whole system, and how is this impacted across all people, whether you're private insurance, state insurance, Medicaid, right? So there's a lot of cascading effects related to HR1 and the impact of that and have on what service delivery for people look like as well. So.
And I realize we're over time for those community engagement updates, but Ryan, there's so much. So I hope, with the pleasure of the group, we can have Margie ask her question. And then I wonder, Ryan, if, maybe we just have a little more time with you, if there's, maybe we can just call a meeting in between meetings or something, knowing that November 1 is the governor's budget. We all would love to contribute more, so that's something that maybe you can carry on to leadership so they can better understand that the expertise of BPAC can lend a lot of knowledge in this space. Margie.
I just real quickly, the one that on the page about reduces payments to providers and regional accountable entities for meeting performance outcomes for behavioral health. Is data still going to be collected? Are we going to still be measuring what outcomes are there? Because I think, going back to Kelly's question, if things are going to go in the toilet because we're going to have fewer resources to serve people that are falling off the rolls, this would be the time we have to more than ever be collecting the data to ensure that we understand what is happening, because we're going to have to fight so hard to not go backwards. I mean, just staying the same is going to be challenging, but we've got to be able to collect enough data to ensure we understand where we're going backwards, because we have worked so hard to get where we are, and it's going to be so much more costly to have to fix what's maybe now fragile, but not quite as broken. But that data collection, the performance measures, what outcomes are happening, we have to be able to have that information. That's not frivolous dollars. That's critical dollars that we need to be spending to know what the heck is happening.
Good flag there, Margie. I think full agree. And the piece to that is my understanding is that the data and the outcomes are not going away. It's just the payment to meet those outcomes is going away, which has a direct impact on the raise and meeting the outcomes, because then you get a financial incentive to meet those outcomes. My understanding is that the measuring of what those outcomes are is not going away. So I think it reminds me, Megan, you and I, in our conversations about hey, where's the dollars going and what are we getting out of the dollars, whether it's block grant related or just full system related. Margie, I hear that. Like, groups like this need to know about what are we getting out of the dollars that we spend in Colorado, and what is the impact of that, removing some of the dollars and how dollars come to the state. What is the impact of that having? We have to be able to measure that to show that, hey, where are the new gaps in the system because of changes federally or changes from a state budgeting structure. I think that is an important piece that really BHA should also be picking up, that like, how are we measuring the health of the behavioral health system on a larger scale that isn't just BHA funding, but is a larger system-wide funding of how behavioral health service delivery are provided by a whole bunch of different state agencies as well, and how do all those things fit together to create the system that we do have, and how does that system change to meet the changing revenue and structures that is Colorado.
It just seems so important, Ryan, that we're paying people to collect the data, because if we're not paying them to do it, how accurate is the data going to be? And that's not going judgment, but people don't, they need to get paid for the work that they're doing.
Thank you, Margie. And I wonder, Ryan, to your point around the knowledge of this group, if it would make sense to also maybe just meet with leadership in the Joint Budget Committee to share some, because we have been over this block grant, we have such a nuanced understanding, right, of how these services are being deployed across the state. And I wonder if it makes sense to have a more robust conversation around, what some of these funding cuts or shifts could mean for our larger populations, as we do see that there will be limited access to programs like Medicaid moving forward. And so just a sort of a thought, maybe, Ryan, that we would, as BHPAC, be able to have a dialogue directly with the decision makers in General Assembly around these concerns. And to Margie's point around the data, maybe that's on the Performance Hub if it's possible. So we can begin to see the trending of where those gaps are, as we see the differentiation between what we are going to continue to fund and what we aren't. Anything else for Ryan? I always ask you for the moon. You know this about me. But I do think that it's important because it also informs our work as BHPAC, right? Then we are able to make better recommendations around where some of those gaps are and how maybe through our SAMHSA block grant dollars, we can really address those needs in a constructive way. Anything else for Ryan, or I can turn it over to Judith for community engagement updates? Or Ryan, you can respond to my ask of a unicorn. You're certainly welcome.
I know, thank you. I mean, I think it's an important piece to keep this body engaged in this process. Like, one of the big steps, and my ask even to this group, is allow me and my team to come back for sure in November after the governor's budget release comes out, which will include BHA's budget requests as well as legislative agenda items, become public as of November 1. Really, I think it's November 3rd, because November 1, I think, is a Saturday. So even that November meeting, I think, is going to be very important, that leads up to the budget season, which will be the briefing and the hearing, and then we can work through what does that mean, and what is the opportunities for you to even listen through JVC talking about what FY27 will look like, which I think this group is very informed on what sort of impacts will those conversations have on the work of this group and behavioral health as a larger discussion moving forward. But definitely don't want to be a stranger with this group. So even if you ask for the moon, let's try to deliver something. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ryan, for sharing your knowledge, for working so hard for us at the Capitol with your team. And I think that maybe, Judith, let's think about how we could fit in the legislative team again in November to get that governor's budget update, and maybe utilize our recommendation letter for the SAMHSA block grants, as well as perhaps that alternative letter that we spoke about, that would be things that don't end up in the block grant, but we still see as recommendations for our state. And with 1
Absolutely.
minute, Judith, you want to run us
Yes,
through your
I'm
awesome
just
community?
gonna run this through real quickly. We still have a few more of the community conversations to go. It's always so great to see you all, and I just wanted to make a plug. Our next one is next week in Denver at the Lowry Conference Center. Really excited about this one, and so please invite as many people as possible, and it would be great to see you there as well. We're gonna have a virtual one on the 16th, the following week. We do need RSVPs for that, just to so it can help us with planning and logistics. And so please share as much as you can, and we would love to see you on those. We had to reschedule both Grand Junction and Otero. So Grand Junction is going to be on September 25th, and then Otero is going to be kind of our crowning glory on October 14th. I am going to drop the event calendar. I can't do anything on my screen without you all seeing. I'm sorry, because I'm sharing my screen. So here is the link to that, and I'll hand it back over to you for public comment, Megan.
Thank you, Judith, and we're looking forward to seeing you in those events. Now I'd like to open this meeting up for our public comment, and that is for our members of the public who are not part of the council to bring their voices to the table. As I do not see any members of the public coming forward to speak on record, once again, we encourage all of you to dig into those documents, the spreadsheet, the recommendation letter. And if you need someone to cry with after you read the governor's executive order, I'm here for you. If you'd like to throw your computer out the window, I support that. Not really, because I don't know how you'd get another one. But so thank you all for joining today, for being a part of this hard work. We're at our crux. That's what we call it in rock climbing. We're at the, like, sort of that crux of the hardest part, but we got this. So please open those documents, contribute. We want your voice in this space, and we're going to continue to populate this document and bring this letter forward over email. We hope that we will have consensus and we're able to vote yes and get this letter accompanied to the already submitted application. So thank you all for your partnership. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, motion to close out the meeting today.
Seconded.
The meeting is over. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for all your
Thank you.
hard work. We're going to get through this together.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dennis and Charles. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.